Weather conditions often affect the price and planted acres of crops here in Louisiana, but what goes on in other parts of the world also have an impact on what farmers grow here at home. A drought gripping the Black Sea region of Russia right now is hampering the wheat crop there, which has become a driving force in our markets. For more on this story, we now go to Neil Melancon with this week's in-studio guest. Neil?
That's right, Mike. Right now, the events going on in Russia, the drought, is causing a lot of furor in the markets. Joining us to talk about it a bit is David Bollich, a grain marketing specialist with the Louisiana Farm Bureau Marketing Association. And David, this drought kind of, we've heard about it before in Russia, but now it seems like it's seriously impacting both our economic outlook as well as our exports.
Well, it was on the radar screen, I think, prior to last week, and then all of a sudden it blew up, and we started hearing talk of, droughts of biblical proportion, and a lot of the reports coming out of there talking about a drought that no one has ever seen before, and they're talking about as much as 1/4 of the planted grain acres that's already lost. So huge losses over there. When you talk about 1/4 of a crop going, you've got an extremely serious situation.
And the big crop that it's impacting, of course, is wheat. But it's kind of having some carryover effect into the other grains, is it not?
It is. Anytime you have a situation like this, I mean, it's dynamic, it's ongoing, you're not really sure how bad it's going to be. I mean, it's going to suck in a lot of speculators into the market, and almost inevitably it'll spill over into your other grains. And I think that's what we're seeing here right now, because if you look at the supply and demand situation, especially for soybeans, you sit here and you scratch your head and wondering, why are soybeans so strong here? I'm sure a lot of it is coming over from the wheat trading and just like I said, bleeding into it. But again, none of our crops are made right now, corn or soybeans, so there's a little bit of uncertainty right here in the U.S. as well.
Switching gears a little bit back to here to the U.S., and last week the president signed the unemployment benefits thing, and one thing I think a lot of people were hoping for is some ag subsidies, but ethanol subsidies also did not get carried in this new bill. Is there a chance we'll see those ethanol subsidies later, and if they get cut out, what effect is that going to have for corn?
Well, I think the budget constraints that we're now working under are going to have a lot of subsidies, whether it's ag or anything else out there, under the gun right now. Could we live with it? I guess we probably could, since, the way I look at it is we have a mandated program. We've got to use X amount of ethanol and everything. So you have, by law, a demand base here. To me, the question is, if we were to phase out ethanol subsidies over time, which is the way I'd hope it would be accomplished, what would we do about ethanol imports? Would we continue to have the tariffs so we could regulate how much came in here? Because there's cheaper ethanol out there, I believe, and to me, that's the bigger question when you look down the road.
One thing about the ethanol subsidies, they're hard to justify with the export picture we're looking at. Talk to me a little bit about what forecasters are seeing for exports and China, how they play a role in this, because I know they upset everybody with the corn situation with them. I don't know if upset's the right word, but they sort of, again, put a little chaos into the market.
Yeah, it definitely put a little power into it. And the Chinese always do that. I mean, it's such a population we're dealing with. It's a dynamic market. It's increasing the living standards there, and that's what's really I guess, the root of all this demand. Anything China does turns into something big. And we're probably very close to some tipping point where, as they did in soybeans years ago when they started using soybeans and importing them, and now they buy over half the soybeans we export. They're huge. And could that happen in corn? Well, I guess it could. I don't see why it wouldn't. It's a feed grain. Soybeans, for the most part, are used in feed rations and everything. So if the Chinese are there, then you're already starting to see, this year we might do 50 or 60 million bushels with China. But we're seeing estimates that, as early as 2015, that could be approaching the 500 million bushel mark.
All right. Thank you, David. David Bollich, a grain marketing specialist with the Louisiana Farm Bureau Marketing Association. We will have a lot more coming up on This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, including My Bottom Line, where I'll take a better look at some of these corn and soybean figures here in the U.S. Stay tuned.